Hi, my name is Mariana Angel, and unfortunately, I'm unable to show you both the presentation and me at the same time, so as I go along, I will be kind of switching the camera so you can see what's on the screen. So my presentation is called No One is Free When Others Are Oppressed. Fighting for Transgender Rights for Human Rights. Okay, so most people are fortunate enough to be born in a body that coincides with their gender. 1.4 million people in the US, however, feel otherwise, that they are a woman in a man's body, or a man in a woman's body, trying to explore their gender and their identity, just like anybody else, but are bound by biology, trapped in a body that doesn't represent a paramount part of who they are. Along with enduring the confusion entailed by misidentifying with their own anatomy, the transgender community faces discrimination by being forced into facilities that identify with their sex rather than their gender. The transgender community should have the right to use the restroom that represents their gender rather than their sex. Every human being has the right to safety, autonomy, equality, and restricting access to bathrooms based on sex withholds those fundamental rights from the transgender community. So to give you a bigger picture of what 1.4 million, that is a rough estimate of the amount of transgender, or people who identify as transgender, based on the New York Times, and around 2016, so it could be a lot greater now, but that roughly is around the population in Hawaii. So it's a lot of people. Out of 20, okay, sorry, next slide. So here, just to check out the slide. Out of 28,000 trans people surveyed, 59% avoided using the bathroom out of fear of confrontation. 32% limited how much they ate or drank in an attempt to avoid using the restroom out of the same fear. Out of those who have used the restroom, 1% have been verbally, physically, or sexually harassed. Using the restroom for most people isn't a thought-provoking decision, but rather an instinctive reaction to release. Life's innumerable demands are stressful enough, and to augment them by worrying about what public bathroom one should use, if any at all, out of fear of harassment, violates the fundamental right to feel safe. Passing a national law to allow people of the transgender community to use the restroom that identifies with their gender rather than their sex will legally solidify their right to be where they feel that they belong. So again, referencing back to the slide, so out of 28,000 people surveyed, 59% avoided using the restroom, which is more than half, and around a third, limited the amount that they drank or ate. Along with the right to feel safe, everyone has a right to have autonomy over their identity and factors thereof. It is prejudice to assume anything based on the color of one's skin, so why not extend that same value in terms of sex? It is therefore prejudice to assume that a person with the sex of a man is a man, or a person with the sex of a woman is a woman. What is a man? What is a woman? Gender roles shouldn't be restricted to biology, but rather should be freed from any expectations at all. What anyway does it mean to be a girl? In the early 1900s, it meant being molded into a domestic role, taking care of the house, husband, kids, as shown here. Today, women are far from being defined as the housewife, because fortunately, after World War II, women stepped up in the workforce, defining a new wave of feminism where women were more independent and able to make a life of their own. In other words, defining what it means to be a woman is unreliable, because there will always be examples or waves redefining what it is to be a woman or a man in society. The constant evolution in gender roles demonstrates humans' inability to conform to the confined characteristics of what it means to be a woman, man, Latino, Latina, Black, white, Asian, a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, anything at all. The autonomy over one's identity is a right that should be granted to everyone, specifically right now the transgender community. They should have a right to identify with the gender that they feel, rather than be told how they're supposed to feel based on the sex that they were born with. Passing a national law allowing the transgender community to use the restroom that they identify with will hone their autonomy over their identity, which is the right that we all deserve. Allowing people of the transgender community to use public restrooms that do not match their biological sex can create discomfort. Some concerns express fear that the trans community is associated with committing sex crimes. However, they are often victims rather than perpetrators. According to the Journal of American Academy of Psychiatry and Law and the U.S. Transgender Survey, 47% of people in the transgender community were sexually assaulted in their lifetime. 47%, that's almost half. So rather than assuming that they are perpetrators of sex crimes based on the information found in the research, they are, rather than perpetrators, victims of many sexual crimes. Excuse me. Another concern that even I myself have feared is the law allowing men to disguise themselves as women, claiming that they are transgender, to then violate women's privacy to satisfy their own perversion. However, only 17 cases of cisgender men, or men that, cisgender meaning people born with the sex that identifies with their own gender, only 17 cases of cisgender men disguising as women were reported. Therefore, the safety of the people in the transgender community is far more at risk. Equality is a constitutional right that is supposed to be granted to every individual. Proposing legislation to restrict access to public restrooms based on sex is ethically unsound and puts that at risk. Puts that right of equality at risk. Utilitarian arguments advocating for such legislation neglect the harm it causes to the transgender community. Exercising and providing equal human rights to all provides a precedent to the dignity owed to human beings despite their gender identification. Allowing transgender people to choose their gender identity grants their basic rights to privacy, liberty, equality, and expression, rights given to everyone. Passing legislation that hinders their right to choose the restroom that fits their identity puts at risk the rights previously mentioned, stripping them of equality. Therefore, it is imperative for us to stand up for our brothers and sisters of the transgender community so that they too can benefit from safety, autonomy, equality, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then this is my final slide. Thank you so much for listening in. And I hope this persuades you to fight for transgender rights, to choose their own identity and allow access for them to go inside a bathroom that identifies more so with their gender identity rather than their sex. Thank you.